Hello and welcome to Hanratty on Karate. Getting quite close to Christmas here, and as usual for Calgary we have some major changes in weather. Last week we had about a foot of snow, and today we have sunshine. I'll probably barbecue later. Anyway, on today's subject I wanted to talk a little bit about coaching. Now, talking about coaching teams for competition, but it also refers to coaching individual athletes within a dojo atmosphere or a competitive atmosphere. It doesn't matter. Coaching is a different mindset, and it's different than instructing. Okay, let's get that out the way right now. Coaching and instructing are two different things. With instructing, you're teaching definite techniques, how they should be done. If you're doing them for kata, then they're done in a sequence, and how that sequence follows, plus the timing, breathing, everything else. And everybody has different opinions on it. For example, I was looking at some tape of a JKA tournament last week that a couple of our students went to and attended, and I noticed that the judges were dropping marks down for breathing. Now, this is entirely subjective. Everybody has their own opinion on breathing during kata. It's like ki-eyes, I don't care how many ki-eyes you make during kata, but they only want them at specific spots. And if they hear you breathing, they'll drop the marks down, which is pretty anal as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's them. If you enter these kind of competitions, expect these kind of rules and how they go. But what I wanted to talk about was coaching. Now, if anything I do well in karate, and I'm not saying I do everything well or even that I did well. I've been in a long time, 56 years right now, and I've coached a lot. I've coached a lot of teams, international, national, provincial, all the way up. And it's kind of my forte. I like working in a team atmosphere, and the role of the coach is it's quite simple, is to motivate your team and get the best out of them. Now, sometimes you don't know what the best is, and you're pleasantly surprised. And other times you realize that you're never going to get the best out of them in a competition format or atmosphere, if you like. It freezes some people up. But over the years, I've felt that bringing the best out of people is a lot more satisfying, to me anyway, than just doing well yourself. I have won competitions, probably by luck or experience or just sheer bloody mindedness. I have won competitions over the years, but it's a lot more satisfying to me when the team I'm coaching or my students win competitions. I feel like I actually achieved something for somebody else. It gives me a good feeling. It's like giving somebody a present at Christmas and they really appreciate it. It's kind of a nice feeling. You feel like you've done something right. You don't need as much effort as you do into performing, like for kata or kumite. But what I've always done is give my athletes and the people I'm coaching the feeling that I'm always behind them, always got your interests at heart. And what I want to do is bring out the best in you. And there's different ways of motivating people and getting them to do their best at the time that you want them. This is called, what I used to call peaking. So if we had, say, a national competition coming up, we'd run up to it with a couple of local competitions, provincial, and this would give me a look at other competitors that I might want to pull into the national team to represent the province. It also gives you an idea of how you're doing coaching your own people, where you stand. Okay, if you win a couple of medals, fine. If you clear the board, then maybe you're doing a good job, all right? So I was always known as the provincial or the national coach, so when I was there, they'd know that I'd be watching them. I'd probably have my little clipboard with names on it, looking for what their favorite techniques were, how they employed them, and stuff like that. It got to the point, I think I was coaching the provincial team for something like 15, 17 years, and I had a very, very good team in my dojo, and we used to take a lot of the top prizes, of course, a lot of the competitions we'd win. Not because I pushed my people to be better, although I was accused once of training too hard, which I took as a kind of a compliment. But because what I'd do is I'd study other students from other styles and other clubs, and I'd look at what they did well, and I'd no compunction about copying it or even trying to improve on it. And I think that this is what karate is all about. I mean, it's JKA is supposed to be the be-all and end-all of karate, but let's face it, it wasn't Japan that started karate. It was started in Okinawa, and the Japanese just imitated it as they do with a lot of things. But they imitated it very, very well, and they marketed it very well. And, of course, it became as popular as it did. And we have to be grateful for that. It may have just been, unknown Okinawan thing if the JKA hadn't got hold of it, if it hadn't gone the way it had with the Japanese doing their marketing and pushing people out all over the world to instruct. It opened it up. And I'm grateful for that. I mean, I'm proud to say I studied under quite a few great masters, and they all came through the JKA. Okay, that's not to say that there's other people out there who aren't JKA that are just as good and have just as good ideas, and even people maybe who came originally from JKA and then innovated on their own and went out and actually turned out better. I mean, some of the great fighters, not all JKA in my opinion. I've seen people go to like JKA competitions and they'll come away, beating them all up. The same thing as the JKA team had come and they'd get beat as well. But this is the way things are, Hopefully you always want your students to be better than you. I know that this goes directly against the Kohai Senpai thing that the Japanese have, and it's frowned upon there to beat your Kohai up. But if you can, you should, because that's just going to show how far you've come. And also, if you look through the concept of Shuhari, you want to get better and be your own person in your own way. And karate is a very personal thing, right? Everybody's built different. We all perform differently. We all think differently. It's not really how it's done, it's how well it's done, and hopefully how well it would work if you ever had to use it. In competition, of course, you're constricted by rules, and the rules are all for the safety of the competitors, and depending which style or which organization you compete under, the rules are going to be different. But I always say, it's their ball, we'll play it their way. So getting back to building a good team and coaching a good team, there's a lot of different things that you have to keep in mind. For example, if you've got a junior team, now personally I don't tend to coach juniors or kids. Now a lot of clubs, they live on kids. That's their mainstay. That's their lifeblood. And that's fine. But there's a fine line between teaching kids karate and just teaching them how to play, all right? If you're going to teach them karate, yeah, you can start them off as young as 4 and 5 years old, and you see this all the time. Even with really good instructors, they'll take in 4 or 5-year-olds and bring them along. I have one notable 5-year-old, been with me since he was 5. He's now 22, 23. Excellent karateka. But I didn't change the way I ran the class because there was kids in it. What I did was I treated the kids the same way, basically as I treated the adults. I might let them go a little earlier, and I wouldn't be as demanding on the physical exercise parts as the fitness parts. But certainly the flexibility you can build into a kid a lot easier than you can, say, with a 30-year-old adult who's coming in as a beginner. Kids are easy to motivate too. They love being told that they're doing it right. They love praise. You single them out and they're over the moon. And the other thing about teaching kids is they're highly competitive. You watch kids in a playground, they'll race each other, they'll run like crazy just for fun. It's the same with kids playing games. They always want to try and win. This is just human nature, all right? Kids that play is basically an imitation of adults growing up. It's a competitive world out there. However, which way you want to think about it, and it doesn't matter how you regard like gentle parenting or, oh, everyone's equal and all the rest of it. We're not. We're not all equal. If we were all equal, we'd all be rich and we wouldn't have to worry about stuff. all right? There's enough money in the world, there's enough food in the world to feed everybody and make everybody comfortable, but we're not, okay? But some people are just greedy. But anyway, going back to teaching kids, they love competition. So, we can make stuff competitive. And even in a team situation with adults, I make training competitive. Very often we're going to do a drill or something, or I've worked out a drill. For example, most of my drills start defense to offense to complete attack. So we may just drop back, then go forward, whatever combinations we're doing. So when we're starting off, I tell everybody, you stand up in line, you look at the guy next to you, look at the guy on the other side, look at the guy in front, then you go, tuh, spit on the floor and go, I can beat you. Say that to yourself, okay? Motivate yourself, and then just go for it, all right? And you can do this with kids dead easy, and they'll all join in and join along with you because they love communal activities as well, all right? So, working with kids, it's quite rewarding, but as I say, I don't tend to treat them as kids. I bring them along and we'll work it from there. Now, it depends also on how a person's been brought up as to how well he's going to do in a karate class. You got a lot of people that come along and they go, well, I've heard you teach discipline. My kid's, he's a little jerk. He doesn't do a thing I say and I can't handle him. So I brought him along to karate. So I hope you can do something with him. Now, what do you want me to do? You want me to smack him around the ear? That's your job, not mine. Okay? Don't bring your kids to karate for discipline. All right? Your kid has to be coachable. He has to be approachable. He has to be basically a human being. All right? Not some spoilt little brat that doesn't even regard his parents with any kind of respect. Okay? So respect is taught at home, and it comes down basically through example. And not only respect, but if your parents are interested in education and educating themselves, if they're curious, if they want to find out about something, that's the way your kids are going to be. If they sit in front of the TV and knock back beers all day, that's the way your kids are going to be. Okay? If you take no notice of authority, if you're calling the police or the authorities and slamming them and insulting them every 5 minutes with no real justification, then so your kids are going to do that. Okay, kids learn by example. All right, they'll do what they see. If you're going to criticize somebody, try to justify it. The other part about criticism, especially in the dojo, it has to be constructive. If you're going to criticize somebody in the dojo, you have to offer an alternate to what they're doing to get them to do it right. Okay, you can't just say, you're rubbish, you can't do that, do it better. Show them how to do it better. This is where the motivation comes in. And you have to be innovative, okay? You have to be innovative in the way that you put things across so that they understand it, because everybody learns in different ways. And it's the same with your adults. Now, with adults, it's a little better, but you have to watch the team structure. I've had some very good teams. I had some really large teams. A couple of times I took 20, 30 people to competitions. We split them up, into individual competitors, team competitors, junior competitors. And of course, they had different genders, males and females. So we'd split them up. But the dynamics of the team will show themselves really quick. You're going to have one team leader. Now, you don't have to make a team captain, especially in karate, because the understanding will work itself out. Somebody will work out that this guy's better than the rest of us, right? Or they'll look up to somebody because he's been in more competitions or won a lot more. The other thing about coaching is people automatically assume that somebody who's won a lot of competitions is going to be a good coach. Not necessarily. The other thing is somebody who produces, say, a good competitor is going to be a good coach. No, he may only produce one competitor, okay? What you're looking for when you're looking, and I was on the provincial body that appointed the coaches, is you're looking for somebody who's consistent in what he produces. Not just once, not just twice, not just one competitor, but when that competitor's maybe finished competing, there's couple more that are going to take his place, and a consistent run of people that are produced from that dojo who's going to show you who's a good instructor and what he can do. And maybe he's the guy that you will pull along, talk to, get his ideas on maybe assisting you in coaching, or the other things that are ancillary to coaching. You have to be financially responsible. You have to be responsible for a lot of things. There's all sorts of little things that go on behind the scenes as you're a coach. Now, nowadays I've noticed that our provincial body seems to have a whole gang of people that are in the administrative side. When I was coaching, I had me as head coach, and that was it. Then you had the officials who were separate, and I wouldn't let the officials come near my athletes. I asked for a budget every year because we were a karate organization, and so it had to do with karate athletes. I asked for a budget every year, and I made sure that each athlete was looked after as far as financials were concerned if they couldn't afford their travel. I've noticed nowadays that they have to put up money up front just to get on the team, which is ridiculous. It's restrictive, and it's elitist. You want the best athletes, not the richest. Okay? We see this so often. People are segregated according to how much money they've got, or if they can afford it or not. Karate shouldn't be like that. Karate's for everybody, right? And if you can't afford, say, to go to a competition, then it should be your coach's job to make sure that you get the funding that you need to do it. That's what I've always done as a coach. Nowadays, when they go, they're going to take 3 or 4 different coaches. Of course, the president, the vice president, the head official, a whole bunch of other officials, all who will get funding. So the last one down the line that gets the funding is the athlete. They probably end up paying. This is shameful. I've got no time for stuff like that. Karate is all about people who do karate, not people who hang on. Anyway, what I want to talk about is motivation. And as I say, the dynamics in karate coaching is similar to any kind of team event, unless you got a particular one person, if you're just coaching one person. And I have had, years ago, I had a young girl who did quite well in competitions, and she wanted to bring her own coach. And the coach actually wasn't her instructor, it was a fitness coach. She went to a gym and a fitness coach. And I said, no. I said, if you want to bring them on your own dollar, and you are not going to get any of the team funding. That's the way it is. You either go as a team or you don't, right? This was a provincial team going to the nationals. That's the way I worked it. Yeah, as I say, the team dynamics will work the way out, and they motivate each other. So when you're looking at people to bring on a team, you're looking for different things. You're looking for personality, obviously. You don't want to upset anybody else on the team. Let's assume you've got a team 5 fighters and 1 reserve, which is usual in Team Kumite. You know, if you've got Team Kata, they better all get along, right? And the thing about Team Kata is you're going to work to the level of the poorest competitor. I shouldn't say that, but because they're all really good, right? They wouldn't be on the team otherwise, but there's going to be one that's maybe not as good as the other 2, and there's going to be one that's going to be better than the other 2. So you're always going to have to work to the lowest level on the 3. But in Team Kumite, of course, you can have a leader, and very often you will have a leader, and it'll sort themselves out. But you don't want to bring on anybody that's going to disrupt the dynamics of the team by asking for personal favors or looking for bring on a personal coach and everything else. Not going to work, all right? If it's an individual, yeah, maybe we can look at it, all right? An individual doesn't really come under the coach, but it should. So as a coach, you can put your foot down and say, no, I'm the coach. I'll judge who's coming and who isn't coming, and you perform to your best ability whether or not, okay? So there is a certain amount of responsibility in that respect. Then what you have to do, your job as a coach, your primary job is to bring the best out in your athletes. Now you have to know what the best is, what it looks like, how it works, what motivates them, what triggers they have to perform well. Some people look on other competitors as the enemy, and they can get quite angry, and that motivates them to do well. Other people just want to compete, want to do well because their buddies are watching. It's a peer pressure thing, and that's it. Other people they just want to perform to show themselves that they're better than they were last time. And let's face it, competition, it doesn't really mean an awful lot. You're living in a rule-bound area where nobody's going to get hurt because the referee will stop it. And you might beat the guy with a good technique, but you know in your heart that if you went outside and had a fight, he'd probably kick the snot out of you, right? So it doesn't really matter. And you can feel the same way if you lose. You get caught with a lucky technique and you think, I could beat that guy any day of the week. Yeah, keep that in your head. That's what you have to do. The other thing when I'm coaching, and I've tried this a lot, it's a technique you might want to try. It's entirely up to you. And I do it in the dojo first, is when my athletes come onto the floor for a kumite match, I always tell them, have a technique in mind that you want to score with, and then try at least 3 times to try to score with that technique. This accomplishes 2 things. First of all, it's probably going to be your best technique. It's going to be one that you're really comfortable with. You can perform really quickly with power and speed. As soon as you see the opening, you've almost hit him as soon as you've realized there was an opening. You don't look for openings. By the time you've looked, you're too late. So you almost instantly recognize and act with the technique on whatever presents itself. So, for example, if a guy's got a really good fast punch, and stand at the side, I'll go, try hitting with your Gyakuzuki, make your favorite feint, Shizoe Waza, which is kind of bring him into it. Try to make him do what you want to do, and then hit him with whatever you want to hit him with. So, for example, I get a guy who's really good at block and counter, so we block and counter Gyak. So make him do that Gyak, and then catch him. Make sure you catch him. Either block it completely, move out the way, a little taisabaki, whatever you're going to do. But have a technique in mind. And you might be really good at mawashi, so straight off the bat you skip in, boom, kizami mawashi, something like that. That's what you want to try and do. If you want to throw Chudan mawashi, great. Frank Brennan used to be amazing at Chudan mawashi, practically cut people in half with it. It was his go-to technique when he was mad. But everybody's got their own favorite technique. What you do is you get better and better and better, and then you bring in the other stuff. And the same when you're painting, you're trying to bring your guy into distance, working your distances, work on everything, and keep going back to the coach and saying, does that work, does that work, does that work? And he'll watch it. If he's a good enough coach, he's probably watching the other side as well. And very often I'll tell a competitor, okay, this guy's going to do this. Watch where his weight is. He's coming, pressing on the back leg, so he's going to push forward. Or he leans forward, so you're okay for a sweep or whatever. Stance is narrow, you can sweep inside or outside, So you can see this coming as a coach. It's like, looking down on a football match and seeing the formation. As a coach, you get used to reading situations, and when you're in a fight, you're kind of focused on the guy in front. It's almost tunnel vision, so you might not see it. So what I would do is always I'd cast my voice kind of low, deep, so it would carry across the floor so we'd hear it. Nowadays they tell you to shut up, which is kind of stupid to me. It doesn't matter if the guy's telling you what to do or not what to do. The other guy can do the same thing, cancels it out. So I believe in coaching on the floor, not sitting in a little box and not saying anything. That's kind of dumb. But anyway, that's just my opinion. So let's say coaching, different kinds of coaching for different kinds of people. I'd always have a little motivational talk before each round with my competitors. Even if they were from different styles, we'd get a good rapport going, we'd get a good friendship going. I'm still friendly with a lot of guys from different styles because we've coached them over the years, and we're still good competitors. I admire what they do, and you don't just stick to the one thing. You admire people for what they do, for how they do it and what they do. That's the way it works. Anyway, I'd be glad to hear from anybody else who's got any coaching tips and drills that they like. Years ago, I mentioned earlier, I think, the National Coaching Certification Program that we have in Canada offered coaching to karate coaches, and I did all 4 of them way back in 1983, and I even contributed a lot to the technical side of coaching, which was purely for the sport, was for karate. So there's a lot of good stuff to be had. And if you got access to this information and these resources, then you should use them. I'm sure if you asked around your athletic associations in the country or sporting associations that, maybe government sponsored, will have some kind of coaching guidelines for you to have. And it's good to pick up the ethical side of it as well and work on that, because ethics counts a lot these days. When you hear of bad stuff coming out of some dojos and things like that and organizations, and it's always going to happen. Everybody's built different, but be straight with who you are, be straight with your students, and be true to your karate. Have a good day, and as usual, any questions, comments, or queries are welcome. Thank you.